Hey guys, it's Rush G. How's it going? I'm doing a video today on crush counters. So this is something that was requested a week or so ago. Where am I going with this? So we cover crush counters quite a lot. We do combo videos, we do setups. But I've never really looked at crush counters and how I evolved as a player to use them. So when Street Fighter 5 first came out, I had no clue why I was getting crush counters. I didn't know what crush counters were. I didn't know what the purpose was. You know, and I don't think many of us did. We just got them. We're just like, oh wow, that looks really cool. But there's more to crush counters than you think when you initially start the game. So just to give you some background, before I even go into any like actual tech, crush counters are, it's just a stylish counter hit. So you only get crush counters off of certain buttons. It's heavies. You don't get crush counters for lights or mediums. And what the crush counter does is, it does the exact same damage extra that a normal counter hit does. Let me show you that. I will counter it on, so it's already on there. So let's take it off a second. If I do a stand light punch, 30 damage. Look at Bison's the damage output underneath his health bar. Damage is 30 damage. What happens with counter is it adds an extra 20% damage on top of the base damage. That's what counter it does. And it often, well no, it does give you frame advantage as well. So whereas a movie's, so stand light punch is +2 on hit. What counter hit does is just normal counter hit. It will add additional frames of advantage on top. It will add additional frames of advantage. It will add additional plus frames on hit. So where that was +2, say, that now becomes +3 or +4. And look at the damage. You can see there the extra 20%, 36 now. You see that it's getting an extra 20% of damage on top. And what that does is it enables you to do different combos. So if I were to do crouching medium punch, stand medium punch, because of the extra plus frames on hit, combos that don't normally work will now work. So Ken has access to a crouching medium punch, stand medium punch combo. Again, if I take counter it off, that doesn't combo now because I haven't got those plus frames off the crouching medium punch. I think that's like +5 on hit, so that becomes +7, I'm guessing, +6. Where am I going now with this? So yeah, crush counters. So 8 damage, no crush counter. What the crush counter does is, why they exist is, it still does the same amount of damage. You see there, it does 96 now, so it's an extra 20%, same like normal counters. But you get a pause, you get freeze, and the freeze gives you time to go a combo that you can't normally go for. The freeze gives you time to react or even option select. So an option select is where you input something and it has 2 different outcomes depending on the scenario it hits or the scenario that takes place. So in this case, you've got a normal hit, you've got on block, and you've got crush counter, 3 different scenarios. The option select is to hit V skill at a certain timing. What happens with the option select is the run only comes out on crush counter. I'll show you that a bit later on. So we're talking about just the science behind it. So now if I do V skill into back medium punch, see that's a 2-hit combo. If I take off counter hit, I get much less time to react because there's no freeze or pause in the game. And even if I do V skill back medium punch, it doesn't combo. That combo does not exist. But you can do like a katsu. So I'll explain why I've showed you that in a minute. So let me cover the option select first, and then I'll tell you how to approach crush counters. So the option select it's for stand heavy punch and stand heavy kick crush counter. I'm going to put counter it on, or I'm going to put guard to random. Oh no, actually I'm going to put counter it to random as well. Start on the left hand side of the screen. Now I'm going to do stand heavy punch. I'm going to hit V skill at a certain rhythm. Rhythm is what's important here. And you'll notice using that rhythm, so the rhythm is timing, but using that timing, the run will only come out on counter hit. So every player now that watches this video, if you're not getting V skill after a crush counter stand heavy punch, I want you, every time you hit stand heavy punch, regardless of where you are, what's going on, to use the option select. Just do V skill at the same time every time you do stand heavy punch. So if you ever press this button, I want to see this. Not in neutral, where you whiff the buttons, but only when you're near the opponent. So look at the timing, pay close attention to the timing of when the buttons appear on my inputs on the left, so... What's happened there? I use the same timing every single time, and the run only came out on crush counter. If it lands normally, no crush counter, it won't come out. Why is he blocking everything? See? I use the same timing and he didn't run. But when it crush counters, the run comes out. The exact same principle works for stand heavy kick. So let's try that now. Oops. So the timing is, you can delay it even more with stand heavy kick. That's what's even better. You can delay it so much with stand heavy kick that you can even react to the crush counter. You don't need the option select, but for beginner players, use the option select. So look at how late I delayed the run. That's a massive delay. That's the option. And that's not me reacting, that's just an option select. Oops, that's too early. That's the timing. So I'm going to do it a number of times, just so you can see the timing on screen. Replicate the timing. So a good drill to do would be to watch the video and press the buttons. Try and look at the timing and try and get a feel for the timing I'm using, and then do it yourself in training. Hopefully you can hear the pad as well. So that was too early. Go. That's what it's saying to me anyway. There is rhythm's a big part of this game. It's very important. So if you got rhythm down, if you do have good rhythm, then it's only going to help you. So that's the option selects. So you're probably wondering what you do now. So you've got the timing down and the option select. So every time you throw out a stand heavy punch and a stand heavy kick, you now know how to get V skill every single time for crush counters. So what do you do next? What's the best button to go for on crush counters, and what do you do? So my opinion is go for the easiest setup. Go for the most simple setup to begin with. The most simple setup is the Likey Tatsu. Reason I say that is because if I turn off guard all, if I put counter hit to random, regardless of whether it's crush counter or non-crush counter, because you guys know now, you know that I'll turn this off. You can do this. Let's say you don't even confirm into V skill, you don't option select, you just do stand heavy punch run. Let's just say you do that all the time. Just do that. Even though it's unsafe on block. You do that all the time. In your muscle memory, you know that the Likey Tatsu works after run when you get the stand heavy punch. The same principle can apply to when you get a crush counter. Because your muscle memory hasn't distinguished the different scenarios, the crush counter, non-crush counter scenario, but you're now getting the run after a crush counter, go for the Likey Tatsu again. It doesn't do the most damage, I know, but it will maximize your damage rather than you dropping the combo, if you know what I'm saying. You're going for the easiest setup, but you're getting more damage out of the scenario. You're not getting max damage, but you're getting more damage out of the scenario. So you now know, get a stand heavy punch. You can do Likey Tatsu after the V skill into heavy punch DP. You can get EX DP, more damage. You can get CA. Oops. So now you've converted 96 damage and then you V-skilling and dropping the combo into at least 215 damage. So it's worthwhile as a beginner to do that. And then once you're comfortable with that and you understand more about crush counters, once you land crush counters more, you can then evolve and move towards not more complicated, but you know, you can look at other avenues. But what you got to make sure you don't do there is when you get a non-crush counter, you don't do that, because that doesn't combo in most scenarios. There are scenarios that just combo, but they're more complex. But that's not going to combo. But because you're doing Logic Tatsu now, in all scenarios, that will combo. So that's how I started off using Stand Heavy Punch. Stand Heavy Punch is the best crush counter out of all three because it keeps the opponent grounded. They don't get thrown into a juggle state. If you look at Crouching Heavy Punch, you get flung in the air, you limit your combo potential, or you make it more difficult to combo. Same like Stand Heavy Kick, you throw them in the air, it makes it more difficult to combo. Whereas this keeps them grounded, and you can go. The longer you keep them on the ground before throwing them in the air, the more damage you're going to get, and the more hits as well. See, there's a number of hits there, whereas if I do this, that's the most I'm going to get. There are more complex scenarios with V-Trigger, but they're not as straightforward. Look at that, already dropped it. That's not easy to do in a match, it's pretty tricky, but if you go for Stand Heavy Punch, that's a lot easier. It's a lot more simple. It may not do as much damage, or it may do, may do similar damage, but that's execution-wise, that's a lot more easy than what I went for, because the juggle throws in situations that require even more precise timing. If they're not in the right position in the air, if they cross up over your head when you're about to go for your juggle follow-up and your move doesn't come out, it's costing you damage. To go for Stand Heavy Punch. The last thing I want to talk about with crush counters is how you get them. So how do you get counter hits? So counter hits can work. There's two ways you get counter hits. So counter hits happen. So every move in the game, specials and normals, they have three states. They have startup, active, and recovery. Now, if you don't know what startup, active, and recovery is, it's really important to understand this concept if you want to get better as a Street Fighter player. So startup is the amount of frames it takes for the button to become active. So every button has a duration, has a set amount of frames. So we talk about frames quite a lot, that you have to go through before the button actually makes contact. So before it even hits the opponent, it has to go through an animation. That's a 4 frame. The reason why they call it 4 frame is because it's 4 frames of animation before it makes contact with your opponent. 7 frame, 6 frame, 9 frame. So you can see the heavier buttons, that's 14 frame. Heavier buttons have longer startup. Longer startup is not a good thing. It may do more damage, but it's not a good thing because if you're hit during startup, the opponent will get a counter hit. They'll score a counter against you, and that's why you get crush counters in neutral. So if Bison is throwing out lights, he keeps throwing out lights, but I'm throwing out heavies. If my heavy catches one of his lights in startup, it's going to crush counter. It's going to score a counter, and because that button has a crush counter associated to it, the game's going to score me a crush counter. If that makes sense. Once the opponent is in an active state, the move. So once it's in a hittable state. So active. Think of it as layman's terms. Active frames means the frames which make contact with the opponent just cause damage. They're the hittable frames. They're the actual attack frames, if that makes sense. So if your opponent hits you during active frames, there's no crush counter. What happens there is there's a trade. So you trade based on the priority of your buttons, which I'll talk about in a minute. And recovery, again, there's no counter hit during hit. If you hit someone during their recovery frames, that's a good example. That's so slow. If somebody hits you there, again, you get no counter hit, but you're still open to punish. So through the whole animation of an attack, like that's a good example. You're pretty vulnerable there if you use that as Ken. But if the active frames make contact and they press something, then you get your crush counter. That's why crush counters are really powerful in this game. I spoke about priority. Priority is extremely important as well. So priority is straightforward. You have lights, you have mediums, you have hards, and I believe that it relates to kicks and punches as well. If two buttons trade, so not if someone's active frames make contact with someone's startup frames, you know the person with the active frames now scores a counter hit. If the active frames of the opponent hit your active frames and you're in a grounded state, your buttons trade, and the trade is if they're like for like in terms of priority. So a light punch for a light punch, you'll both take damage, and you'll both get into. You'll be in you'll be in like damaged animation. So you'll both stagger backwards. If the opponent uses a medium button, so a medium punch, and you use light punch, their button, even though you've traded, you completely lose that scenario. You don't even score any damage. You get hit, and I'm not sure if you get counter hit there. I don't think you do get counter hit. There is ways to replicate this. I can try. I don't think you. Oh, actually no, you do score a counter hit. You do. Okay, we can try that in a minute. And if and that's why it's called crush counters. So if Ken was to do stand medium punch, but Bison was to do stand heavy kick, and they're both traded. That's right, yeah. He would counter me. He would crush counter me because his heavy obviously prioritizes over my medium, and he wins the exchange, and that's what leads to the crush counter. I believe, I'm not sure, I haven't tested this. I think a light punch trading with a light kick, I think the kick takes priority as well. So there's varying levels of priority against the damage of the button and the punches of the kicks. I think kicks get more priority over punches. So a heavy punch will lose to a heavy kick, but don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, but again, it's something we have to test. But let's just check to make sure that when active frame for active frame make contact, it is a counter hit. So let's try that. So he's going to do a 3 frame after block. Set that on. Now this is the frame trap. That's a frame trap there. Turn counter off. Let's put guard all on. So what's happening there is, to explain, that is a 4 frame button and it's +2 on block. That afterwards is a 5 frame move. Bison has access to a 3 frame, so after that situation, I am now +2, making his 3 frame make contact with me on the 5th frame after that attack. The reason that works is because I'm 2 frames ahead, because that's +2. His stand light kick is 3 frame, but he's having to wait 2 extra frames before his 3 frame comes out. So it makes contact with me after 5 frames, that makes sense. So call his stand light kick now a 5 frame because I'm +2. That makes sense? So his 5 frame is making contact with me, not in 3 frames, not after 3 frames. Now it's, sorry, what did I say then? His 3 frame is not making contact with me after 3 frames of animation. He's having to wait an additional 2 frames before he makes contact. Ken's 5 frame attack is back medium punch. So he's now, in theory, 5 frame. He's trading with my 5 frame. And it's the trade, as I just said, in terms of priority, my back medium punch will win. But because it's trading, you can see it's counter hitting now. So that proves my theory. Active frames versus active frames, when they make contact, when they clash together, you trade. You don't trade. You use the person that uses the heavy button scores the counter hit. I'm trying to think now. Is there a way I can simulate a trade of the same? Okay, there you go. So now I'm doing another. It's essentially a frame trap, but he's got access to a 3 frame. It's trading with the frame trap. So I'm doing crouch and light kick, stand light kick. I think that's +1 on hit. I'm not 100% sure, but that is then 4 frame. Because I'm +1, essentially that hits him after 3 frames, not 4 frames. But because he has access to a 3 frame, we trade. We trade him button for button now. His wake up light, well, his unblocked light kick, his reversal light kick is trading with my light kick. You can see there's no counter at all. We just trade. So there's no counter. So the counter only is awarded when you clean prioritize over someone's button. You score a counter then. So if I were to do, it's hard to simulate this. He's beating me altogether. Oh, that's because that's minus. Okay. So yeah, guys, we could be here for like all night talking about this, so I don't want to make it any more complicated. But that's explained to you, just a recap, it's explained to you what crush counters are, what properties they change, how to option select the crush counters, stand heavy punch, stand heavy kick, and optimal, well, not optimal, the most simple follow-up after a crush counter stand heavy punch. We spoke about priority, how priority works. There was one more thing I wanted to touch on, but I've completely forgot what it was now. Typical. Let me think. We were doing one thing I should note is priority does not apply when you're in the air. So if Bison were to do a jumping light kick and I did heavy kick, if we hit active frame for active frame, we'll both trade. Even though I throw out a heavy kick, there's no trade scenario in the air. So remember that. I'm just trying to think what I was going to say. What was I going to say? I can't remember. There's no point me trying to waste time remembering during the video. I can add the details to the comment section. But that's essentially it. When it comes to crush counters, it's important. Oh, I know what it was. That's it. How you land crush counters. So we've spoken about in neutral. So let's try and simulate. I'm going to try and simulate a stand heavy punch in neutral. It's off the back of what we just said now. How can I do this? We might have to do a slower button, so let's do... to crouch and medium punch. Not that this would never happen, but let's just do it for the purpose of the test. Okay, cool. So this, I'm not saying to do this, but I'm trying to simulate the scenario. So when you're in neutral and you score a random crush counter, that's because you have prioritized your heavy button over their heavy button. So what's happening here is I'm +2 here and he's using a medium punch. But I'm hitting crouching heavy punch afterwards. Crouching heavy punch is a 6-frame startup move, but it crush counters, and he's using crouching medium punch. I imagine his crouching medium punch is a 6-frame normal. So that crouching heavy punch must be hitting during his startup frames. That's why it's crush countering. So this is the scenario that happens in neutral. You'll be in neutral. You won't use crouching heavy punch. You'll be using stand heavy punch. Stand heavy punch, stand heavy kick. But where I can't really simulate. I want to use stand heavy punch, to be honest. There you go. This isn't a practical scenario, but I'm just trying to illustrate what I'm talking about. So I'm using the EX5 one V trigger to be +3 on block. +3 there. My stand heavy punch is a 9-frame. 9-frame minus the 3 frames of advantage I have takes me to 6-frame. So my 6-frame is trading with his crouch and medium punch. 6-frame. Again, I assume it's 6-frame Bisons. And that's why I'm getting the crush counter, because we're trading and I'm being rewarded with the crush counter. It's why crush counters they're a bit cheap in this game, to be honest. They give you a lot of reward for not much work. So what you want to do now is, now you've got your options deck sorted. I'm not saying this is a scenario you want to do, but if you land a crush counter in neutral, after my stand heavy punch, I'm going to option select, and then I'm going to go for the most simple follow-up. So I'm going to go for... There we go. So I'm going to option select after the stand heavy punch. A bit too off, my buttons up quite bad there. Okay, I went for a more physical setup there. See, got 3-hit combo. Let's do it again. Ah man, that's muscle memory that is taking over. So I am scoring a crush counter in neutral. I'm option selecting, and then I'm going for an easy setup, light kick tattoo, and then I went for the EX tattoo afterwards. The EX tattoo only works in V trigger, so really what I should be doing is the heavy punch DP. Crush counter in neutral, the option select to get the run, and then the most easiest follow-up, which was like your Tatsu heavy punch DP. If you can start doing that in neutral, if you can option select the heavy punch, and then you can V-skill and then follow up with the right combination afterwards, the easiest combination, you will do so much better in your matches. So learn this, really absorb what you've taken in here and practice it and add it to your game. The more you try to add it into your game during matches, the less you're going to think about it as time goes on, and it'll just be a bread and butter thing. And that's when you want to go for, you want to switch it up and go for more damage. So you want to go for, this is V trigger specific, but maximise the damage, that'll be your next focus. So once you got the crush counters down, then you want to focus on maximising damage using the more complex setups, but with more options, more complex setups for styling on your opponent. You open up to more avenues, and when you open to more avenues, you're gonna have to think more about what you want to go for. You've got to pay attention to your meter. That's why I'm saying to begin with, go for the Like It Tatsu heavy punch DP, because you haven't got to think. Your muscle memory will take over, and you'll be like, right, Like It Tatsu heavy punch DP, done, carry on. Whereas when you have more options available, when you're trying to do these more complex situations, you do have to think. And that's what happens a lot of times with, like, in my matches, I'll try and go for a more difficult combo just to get more damage, or to, you know, to style on the opponent. And I drop the combo and I'm thinking, oh crap, I shouldn't have done that. You know, oops, my bad, it was a ranked match, I've just done that, I've just thrown away the game. So start with simple things first and build your way up. Shit, there was one more. Oh, and that's, okay, this is the final thing I want to talk about. So I can't really do this with Bison, so I'm gonna have to change character. But there are certain attacks, invincible, anything that has invincible frames. So we're talking dragon punches, we're talking Kami's cannon spike, talking about Urian's headbutt. Anything that has invincible frames and is blocked, is baited out. So what's a more complex one? No, we'll just go Ryu. Let's keep it simple. Oh, we'll go with Guile. He has a flash kick. So these moves, when they're baited, when they're blocked, when they whiff and they're in recovery, what happens is the recovery frames have an additional property because the move has access to invincible frames. Invincible frames are they're frames on wake up that beat things. So, for example, Guile's, no, I don't know about Guile. So with Ken's light punch DP is completely invincible to throws on wake up. So if Guile wanted to walk up to me when I'm knocked down or wanted to throw me, if I light punch DP, that's going to beat him every time. Because it's invincible to throws. Medium punch DP, it's invincible during its startup frames to air attacks. Anything in the air, so if they jump in like heavy kick or jump or whatever, that will clean beat it. It won't trade. It'll completely go through it. You'll see their attack in your body making contact, but the DP will completely beat it in those situations. This doesn't beat grounded attacks though. That will trade or lose to grounded attacks. Heavy punch DP has invincibility later on, not during the startup, but like during later frames of its animation. That one's good. If you're going to use that one, it's good for going through attacks, slow attacks. So like Laura's fireball, if you see it coming and you're close range, that will clean beat her fireball, for example. EXDP beats everything, so nothing. Command grabs, throws, meaties, it'll go through. It has I think 5 frames of invincibility during startup. It'll beat everything. Why I'm telling you that is because whilst that's a good thing, there's the risk reward that situation is if you whiff or if it's blocked and you're on the way down during the recovery animation. So the recovery animation is, you got the startup, which is him starting the DP. You got the active frames where he's making contact, but when he's coming down from the sky, he's in recovery that entire time. During his recovery, he's in a counter hit state. Counter hit state is basically where they get a free counter hit combo. They get a free crush counter basically. So when I come down from this, he hasn't got to worry about catching my active frames or trade with me to get a crush counter. Your opponent can just throw out a heavy button that has a crush counter associated with it to get a free crush counter. So this is really important for people that are learning the game. If somebody whiffs a move that has invincibility frames, you need to go for a crush counter to maximize your damage. You don't want to throw them. You don't want to go for like a basic combo like that. You want to go for the crush counter every time. So let's show you this now. You can see here now, counter is not on. Normal stand heavy punch. If I get Guile to do record it. EX flash kick. Because EX flash kick has invincibility against everything, similar to Ken's EX DP. Remember, there's crush counter's not on there. Remember, and counter it's not on there. You get a free counter there. You don't have to go. You don't have to go for the stand heavy punch. You can go for other things. But you can see if I do stand light punch, no counter. Watch. Guile is put into a counter hit state. You're given a free crush counter. So that's the other scenario that crush counter is working. So you've got crush counters in neutral when you trade and prioritize, and you got crush counters that are given to you free after invincible moves. So you get free setup there. You don't even have to option select because you know for a fact that your crush counter is coming out. So you can just raw do V skill straight after heavy punch. Like that. No need to option select, just go for it. Just go for whatever you want. You can even do it before they hit the ground if you look. You don't want to do that because you put him in a juggle state. But what I'm saying is the whole way down, he's in a counted state. See that there? I did a jumping kick as he's coming down, and it's still counted because as soon as the active or attacking frames are finished in the air, they're in counted state. So you can do all sorts of things. You can go for more obscure combos because you know the counter is coming regardless. To react to counter to neutral for a beginner player is quite hard. I mean, I drop it all the time. I just stand heavy punch and I try and react to the crush counter, and I've noticed of late I'm dropping it quite a lot. So that's probably a telltale sign that I need to go back to using the option select for stand heavy punch. I can react to it, but when I'm so focused in a match, I'm dropping it. So that's a good point to myself. Yeah, I'll start using the option select again. Stand heavy punch, stand heavy kick, you get more time to react, so I don't worry about that one so much. So guys, I know it's been a real long video. I know I've probably chewed off more of your ear than I planned to, but that gives you like an in-depth guide, everything you need to know about crush counters in Street Fighter 5, particularly with Ken. So use this information, try it out, practice, and really try hard to put it in your game. If you don't, and you're not getting not max damage, if you're not capitalizing on damage from crush counters, if you don't know how to get them, you're going to suffer, you're going to have problems. One thing I should say is, some moves that you see in game and you think should have crush counterable states on their recovery but don't. Good example is Nash's EX, is EX Scythe, where he does the 2 kicks upwards. See that looks like a DP, but it's actually not a DP. The reason why it looks like a DP, well, the reason why you don't get a crush counter after that is because it has no invincible frames. If you knock Nash down and you went for a meaty and he did wake up EX Scythe, if your meaty timing is perfect, he'll get hit. He'll lose to your meaty because the EX Scythe has no invincible frames. That's why if you whiff a Scythe and you do stand heavy punch, you don't get a crush counter. You only get crush counters during moves in recovery for ones that have invincible frames. So moves like that, they're not, they don't grant you the crush counter. So next time you see a Nash wake up with the EX Scythe and you go for a crush counter setup, it's not going to work. So at least you understand that now if you weren't sure before. I've seen a lot of people have said like, oh, I woke up with EX Scythe and it lost on my wake up. That's because if you're from Nash players, that's because it's not invincible. If you're playing Nash, you should know that he doesn't have an invincible wake up. The only invincible wake up is CA. Likewise, if you get hit by the EX Scythe, or no, if you go for a crush counter when he does EX Scythe and you block it, you're not going to get a crush counter. You're going to get a regular stand heavy punch during his recovery frames. One last thing to say as well is CAs, even though they're mostly completely invincible, Ken, for example, has invincible frames, so he can wake up CA. You can't crush counter after wake up CA. There's no CA in the game that during its recovery gives you access to crush counters. You have to go for basic punishes. So if you're going to go for stand heavy punch, it would be stand heavy punch, V skill, like Tatsu, or lion breaker, or whatever. Depends on the CA we're talking about, but you should punish CAs as hard as you can, but not all of them are severely punishable, not like because you don't get crush counters. Likewise with command grabs, if somebody whips a command grab, I think you should get a crush counter, but you don't. It's just a normal whiff, so you get a whiff punish combo basically off that. Is that it? Oh, that's probably wow. Ah man, I punched the mic. Damn, that hurt. So the other thing I was going to say is as well, there are other things that lead you to being into counter hit states. So we spoke about the DP on recovery, really counter hit state. If you V skill, when Ken's running towards the opponent, I get Guile to do okay, if he does that, that's one of his crush counter buttons. If I V skill into that, oops. Oh god, just got to do down back, didn't I? Afterwards. If I run into that, see, I got crush countered. It's because when Ken runs forward, he's in a counter hit state. Think of it as startup frames. When he's running, he's in inverted commas startup. He's in a free counter hit state. Another scenario of that is Ryu's parry. If he whiffs the parry, he's in a counter hit state. If Akuma whiffs his parry, counter hit state. I think if Guile, no, not so much for Guile. I'm trying to think of other characters. I assume Urian's V skill as well. Once he gets the armor, if you attack him during the animation, you'll get a counter hit. So it's not just DPs that offer counter hit states. You do get other scenarios as well, mainly in the form of V skill. So remember that as well. Different states could also induce. Different things can induce counter hit state as well. So guys, I've rambled on like way too long, but that's the gist of it. That's what's going on with counter hits and crush counters. So I've given you loads of information. Absorb it, test it, try it, apply it, learn it, and then move on to the next thing. So I hope that's helped, guys. Apologise I haven't got it out sooner because I know this was requested quite a few times in the past, but that covers crush counters for Street Fighter 5. There's nothing more you really need to know about crush counters, so master it and use it and you'll be a much better player. Guys, I'm going to go. I'll catch you later on. Take care.